Welcome back, folks. We need to have a conversation about dignity and humanity. I'm going to first walk you through a few examples before we jump into the meat of this discussion. But we have crossed a line and started calling things normal that are not or should not be normal. Example number one, the behavior chart on the wall in your kid's school classroom. It's laminated, it's up near the teacher's desk. Everybody can see it, teachers and kids alike. There's green, there's yellow, there's red, and each child has a clip or a card with their name on it. When they get overwhelmed, not disruptive, they're just overwhelmed, the clip has to get moved. The card has to be turned. There's no explanation, no conversation. And by lunch, that kid knows exactly where they stand. And so does everyone else. This strips their dignity. Think about an IEP meeting where a kid completely disappears. You're in the conference room, there's like 6 adults, the IEP is up on the screen, your kid is sitting at the table, or maybe they're just outside the door, while all of the adults are talking about their deficits, their behavior challenges, and any other concerns. They're using words like non-compliant, avoidant, refuses, disrespectful. No one's asking your kid how they feel in their body. No one notices them disappearing and folding into themselves. Their dignity has been stripped. Another example, the calm down room that really isn't about calm. Your kid's support plan says, quote, sensory break. It sounds really thoughtful. It sounds really trauma informed and safe. But in practice, it looks like this. A child escalates, the adult escorts them out of the room, the door closes, and the message to that kid is very clear, even if nobody ever says it out loud. Come back when you can be easier to be around. We don't want you here if you're a problem. That strips their dignity, folks. Another example, the gentle compliance script. An adult kneels and uses a calm voice. I need you to make a good choice. Use your words. We don't do that here. The child's body is shaking, their breathing is shallow, they're so dysregulated. But the expectation always stays the same: perform regulation on demand. You've shown me you're dysregulated, but I'm going to tell you that you need to be regulated, and then I'm going to expect that it just magically happens. This strips dignity, folks. How about those data points in our IEPs that end up just replacing a child? The report says meltdowns reduced by 40%. What it's not saying is the child stopped asking for help. The child learned to freeze. The child learned it was safer to disappear. That strips dignity, folks. How about that he knows better moment? We've almost all had these conversations with our kids' schools. A child does something impulsive. They blurt something out. They might swing at someone when they said something mean. Then the adult sighs and says, he knows better. But knowing isn't the same as being able. And shame does not build skills, folks. It erases safety. It strips the feeling of safety. It can't happen under shame. And so what happens? It strips dignity. You guessed it. When someone tells you to just do it already and stop asking questions, I'm sure at some point in your life, somebody has said that to you. Just do it already and stop asking questions. How does that feel on the receiving end? It feels like you don't matter, doesn't it? It erases your dignity and humanity. Somewhere along the way, we decided that compliance actually matters more than humanity. Do you hear how ridiculous that sounds? We've decided that compliance matters more than humanity. No, absolutely not. No way. So, this episode is going to be about strategies. It's going to be about dignity. And I am not neutral on this. I will warn you right now, I'm not going to be neutral. And remember that if a strategy wouldn't be acceptable for an adult, it's not suddenly humane because the person is a child. Kids are people too. I've said this before on the podcast, but when I was 4 or 5 years old, I had a t-shirt and it said, "Kids are people too," right on the front. And I wanted to wear that shirt every moment of every day. So it started very young for me to see kids as people. They're not things that we need to control. They are people that we need to help along the way to finding themselves and doing it with dignity and humanity. Let's define dignity in plain language. It is being treated as a full human, even when struggling, even when different. When someone is different from you and you treat them like a full human, you are treating them with dignity. It is not earning respect through behavior. No one should earn respect, in my opinion. It's not proving worth by performing, and it's not losing rights because regulation is hard. Regulation is hard for so many of our kids. They are on the cusp of that activated state of dysregulation so very often. That is high alert. That is, where's the stress? I know there's stress coming. Where is it? Oh my gosh, I can't do this. And then we tack on to that. We approach that without any dignity. We strip the dignity right out of it by asking for compliance. We feel like kids need to earn humane treatment by behaving appropriately, using my air quotes again. No one, no human being should have to earn humane treatment ever. We also work from this place of thinking that support is conditional. If we can have unconditional love for another human, little or not, we can have unconditional support. We can unconditionally treat them with dignity. The hard truth is that our neurodivergent kids are asked to sacrifice dignity for access. You can have support, but only if you comply. So we've talked about a lot of examples of where dignity gets lost in school. Those public behavior charts, those clip systems, forced eye contact, isolation so that they can calm. Adults talking about a child while they're right there present in the room, talking about them and for them, taking away recess because a kid does their work more slowly, taking away movement, taking away autonomy. Hello, we need autonomy to feel safe, folks. He knows better language. Well, I'm sorry, Miss Williams, but your son knows better than to lash out when another kid is unkind. What are you going to do about this? Come on. Knowing better and being able to do better depend on the state of the nervous system. They're two totally different things. These practices that I was just talking about teach kids that their body is a problem, that their needs are inconvenient, and that their voice does not matter. Wow. I mean, this is making me honestly feel a little sick to talk about right now. This is not what we want for our kids, folks. And teachers don't want this for our kids either. They are practicing traditional methods and following traditional ideals about education that just fly in the face of neuroscience. It's not about educating, it's about conditioning. But it should be about educating, right? And it should be about dignity for all. When regulation is treated like a moral failing, dignity is going to be the first casualty. Regulation is not a moral failing. Regulation is a human biological thing that happens. And some people struggle more with than others with dysregulation. Regulation is not a moral failing. Regulation is a person's biology. Would you punish someone for having diabetes? Would you Tell someone they know better than to use a wheelchair and they need to walk. I mean, these things sound absolutely ridiculous, right? But that is what we're doing to neurodivergent kids. Behavior is not the opposite of dignity. Control is. Control is the opposite of dignity. Asking for compliance sake is the opposite of dignity. When we look at things through the brain-based lens and we reframe behavior as communication, not character, then we start to treat those who are neurodivergent with dignity. It's not about character and morals and personality. It is their biology. When the nervous system is under threat, whether it senses an actual threat or it senses a perceived possible threat, it cannot perform appropriate behavior. I'm using air quotes again, folks, appropriate behavior. It cannot, because when we are dysregulated, thinking brain access dims or is completely cut off. So we cannot access skills. We cannot process language. We cannot rationalize or use logic. But yet we want to tell a kid, but I just need you to do this, or I just need you to act this way. And they're suddenly supposed to be able to do that. No, it is outside of their biology in that moment. You cannot discipline a nervous system into safety. You cannot instruct a nervous system into safety. You cannot. Systems claim to teach skills, but they actually rely on fear, shame, and withdrawal of connection and affection, withdrawal of even compassion and empathy. This is not okay. I know you know this, but we need to be talking about it. This is not okay. If a child has to abandon their nervous system to survive school, the school system is broken. The kid isn't broken. The school system is broken. And by the way, they can't abandon their nervous system. It controls staying alive. So what do we do? How do we take a more humanistic approach? What does dignity-centered support actually look like? It doesn't mean that we're permissive. So many people are going to make that argument that we are just letting kids get away with, air quotes again, bad behavior. But we are not. We are honoring where the nervous system is in that moment, knowing that we cannot teach or correct when they are dysregulated. It is nervous system first parenting, nervous system first educating, because the nervous system governs our behavior. So it is that important. Dignity centered actually means privacy, choice, co-regulation before correction, assuming stress before we assume that they're being defiant. When the nervous system goes into fight, flight, or freeze, that is a biological stress response. So we have to assume stress before we assume intentional bad behavior, because we are going nervous system first. Dignity centered is repair over punishment and seeing the child, not just their behavior. Seeing that human being in front of you and what they need. Accountability with dignity is possible. Again, we're not being permissive. We're not letting go of expectations. We're not letting kids make their own decisions and run amok in whatever way they want. Accountability with dignity is possible. Accountability without that dignity is harming kids, period. It is harming kids. Structure without humanity is just control. It is just simply trying to control that person, that child. Humanity without structure is abandonment. Structure without humanity is control. Kids deserve the humanity first, dignity first. So, what are the long-term costs of ignoring dignity, of not treating our neurodivergent kids, teens, young adults with dignity? Let's zoom out. When kids grow up without dignity, they mask. Almost every parent I coach now talks about how their kid masks. They have anxiety or increased and escalating anxiety. When kids grow up without dignity, they have a shame-based identity. That little voice inside of them has a story of shame. They also learn helplessness. They learn that they cannot win. And they often learn a distrust of authority because they don't feel seen, heard, and understood by that authority if they are not treated with dignity. We're not just looking to shape behavior. We are shaping safe nervous systems. We are shaping self-worth and future relationships. So I am going to make a commitment right now out loud to all of you that I will always choose dignity over compliance. I invite you to choose the same stance, the same perspective, the same commitment. Choose dignity over compliance, folks. Compliance doesn't teach kids skills. Compliance robs them of dignity. Compliance makes their nervous system more dysregulated and success less possible. When you're coming up to a struggle with a student, a struggle with your kid, a struggle with anyone else, any other human really, ask yourself, does this preserve this person's humanity? Does this preserve this kid's humanity? Does this preserve this teen's humanity? Does this preserve my child's humanity? That should always be our first question. Not, why did you do that? What's wrong with you? But my response, is it going to preserve this child's humanity? Am I going to treat them with dignity if I do this thing? If the answer is no, you need to pivot. If the answer is no, and you continue with that thing that is robbing that child of dignity, you are going to harm them. Maybe not right in that moment, but probably. But you are going to harm them. And when we continue to rob them of dignity, guess what happens? Their mental and emotional health as adults is far worse. It is far worse. We are robbing them of joy and happiness and a sense of belonging. Like, I know that some of you are thinking that I'm hysterical and I've lost my mind and I'm going over the edge, but I'm telling you, this matters more than anything. We have to start treating each other with dignity always, 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 always. Please. I'm begging. Can you tell? I'm begging. I just want every human to treat every other human with dignity and humanity. That is how we raise kids who are happy and fulfilled. That's how we help our friends and our neighbors and our fellow man when they're having a hard time. We don't need to fix neurodivergent kids, neurodivergent adults. But when they are kids, we do need to protect them from systems that forget they are a human being. They are a unique individual human being. Parents didn't create the system, this educational system. Educators, most of them didn't create the system. The system was created, decades and decades and decades ago. But those educators are often trapped inside of that antiquated system that doesn't see kids as individuals, that only asks for compliance above all. We can hold compassion for the adults in the school, the educators, the teachers, the administrators, and still refuse to rob them of dignity and harm them. Please, I hope you'll just make this really simple commitment with me that we will always choose dignity over compliance. This is how we change the experience for the better for our kids at school, out of school, and beyond for a lifetime. For a lifetime, folks. I will see you on the next episode. Please take good care.